"If you wish to know who truly loves you, try this one test," said Bill Gates. And in that simple line lies a question that pierces deeper than wealth, deeper than power, deeper than the illusions of applause. Who stands beside you when your brilliance dims? Who lingers when the stage lights fade, when the hands that once clapped fall silent? Love, loyalty, and truth are not tested in abundance, but in absence. It is not during your triumphs that you will know the faces of the faithful, but in the quiet ruin of your failures, when you no longer shine and the world no longer needs you. The archetype of the seeker emerges here, the human being who hungers, not for gold, but for truth. Every soul, at some point, becomes the seeker. Each person longs to peel away the masks of affection, to discover the raw and unfiltered essence of who genuinely cares. For psychology tells us that the deepest human fear is not death itself, but abandonment, the terror of being unloved, unseen, and left behind. Behind the masks of success, every heart trembles with this silent fear. And yet, within this very fear lies the key to liberation. Imagine a man at the peak of power, surrounded by companions, each voice echoing praises, each hand reaching toward him. Yet the moment fortune turns its back, those voices grow faint, those hands withdraw. He learns, painfully, that admiration is not affection, and companionship is not loyalty. In this theater of human behavior, archetypes reveal themselves. The opportunist who stays only when the feast is plentiful, the pretender whose kindness is a currency of advantage, and the rare guardian whose presence is an anchor, unshaken by storm. These roles play out in every life, including yours. The question is not whether they exist, but whether you have the courage to test them. To test love is to risk loss, and loss terrifies the human heart. Yet consider the paradox. Without loss, no truth is revealed. The psychology of attachment tells us that human beings cling, often desperately, to what gives them security. Many cling to relationships out of fear, not love. They fear solitude, and so they remain. They fear judgment, and so they pretend. They fear the emptiness of silence, and so they fill it with hollow companionship. But true love, true loyalty, is free from fear. It stands not because it must, but because it chooses. This is the power of the test Bill Gates speaks of. The test strips away fear and compulsion, revealing the core. And here, you too are called into the story. You are asked, not passively, but directly, do you dare? Do you dare to turn down the music of false praise, to silence the noise of convenience, to see who lingers when there is nothing left to gain? You may think of friends you have now, of companions who laugh with you, of partners who swear loyalty. But remember, words are weightless. Actions under pressure are the only measure of truth. Dare to test, and you will discover that many who smile in light will vanish in darkness. But the one or two who remain, they are priceless. The philosopher in you whispers that this truth is cruel, but the psychologist within knows it is necessary. Human beings evolve through rupture. When illusions collapse, when facades dissolve, the pain becomes a teacher. Think of the archetype of the phoenix, the bird that burns to ashes before it rises anew. So too must relationships face fire. What survives fire is real. What does not was never meant to endure. And in this knowledge lies freedom. For it is better to lose the false early than to keep them near until the end. In the story of love and loyalty, another archetype waits quietly, the shadow. This is the part of human behavior that resists the test, the voice that whispers, "Don't look too closely. You may not like what you find." And yet, to avoid the test is to accept a life of pretense. You must choose between comfort in illusion and courage in truth. If you are brave, you will allow the test to happen naturally. Life has a way of bringing winters, and winters always expose the roots. In the cold, flowers die, but roots endure. Ask yourself, who are your roots? And so, the lesson unfolds. Do not measure love by smiles in summer, but by shelter in storm. Do not confuse admiration with devotion, nor convenience with care. True love is revealed in scarcity, not abundance, and when you find it, it will not be loud, it will not be flashy, it will be steady, quiet, and unwavering. That is the power of the test. That is the truth hidden in Bill Gates's words. The test of love does not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it creeps in with silence, a slow erosion of the stage upon which you once performed. One day, the applause grows weaker. Another day, the calls are fewer. Then, suddenly, you look around and realize the crowd has dispersed. It is in this subtle vanishing that you confront the truth. For in the absence of an audience, only the devoted remain seated. Only the ones who love you without condition will choose the emptiness of that theater, waiting not for entertainment, but for you. Psychologists describe this moment as the unveiling of authentic bonds. Social identity theory tells us that people gather around symbols of status, wealth, and power because proximity grants them borrowed significance. When you lose these symbols, the parasites fall away. What remains is no longer about identity, but intimacy. It is not about what you can give, but about who you are. This is the quiet revolution of love, the shift from borrowed light to inner flame. In such moments, archetypes reveal themselves with frightening clarity. The false friends scatter like birds startled by noise. The true ones become still, like stones unmoved by storm. And you, the seeker, stand at a crossroads. One road invites you to chase the crowd again, to rebuild the illusion, to call them back with more wealth, more power, more spectacle. The other road demands something harder, to embrace the solitude of truth, to accept that fewer companions may walk with you, but those few will be enough. For what is more sacred? 1,000 voices singing your name, or one voice whispering your worth when the world has forgotten you. This is not romantic rhetoric. It is the psychology of resilience. Humans, when stripped of validation, often collapse into despair because their identity has fused with the perception of others. They have mistaken applause for love, recognition for worth. When applause disappears, they feel annihilated. But the wise learn that identity must be rooted in something deeper. You are not who people think you are. You are who you remain when no one is watching. And those who love you truly love. You see this hidden self, not the performance. That is why they stay. Think of the archetype of the healer, the one who does not abandon the wounded. When you stumble, when your brilliance falters, when your crown falls into the dust, the healer archetype appears as the quiet hand that lifts, not for reward, not for glory, but because compassion is their essence. To have even one healer in your life is to be blessed beyond measure. Yet the test is required to know them, for in abundance, their presence is drowned by the noise of flatterers. Only scarcity filters truth. Only collapse reveals purity. And you, yes you, must not only seek such healers, but also dare to become one. Ask yourself, whom do you stand beside when the music fades? Whose silence do you sit in without demanding entertainment? The archetype you attract is the archetype you embody. If you long for loyalty, you must practice loyalty. If you desire love without condition, you must give love without transaction. The test is not only external, it is internal. It asks you not just to measure others, but to measure yourself. Are you the opportunist, the pretender, or the guardian? The shadow resists this reflection, whispering excuses, justifying abandonment, dressing self-interest as practicality. But the deeper voice, the voice of the awakened self, knows that true love demands sacrifice. It does not calculate profit. It does not retreat when the harvest fails. This is not naive idealism. It is the essence of human connection. Every great relationship, every profound bond, has been tempered by trial. Without fire, there is no strength. Without loss, there is no truth. So when life strips you of what dazzles, do not despair. The stripping is the blessing. It is the test that cleanses illusions, the fire that burns away shadows. And when the smoke clears, you will see who stands with you. Perhaps only one, perhaps none. But know this: solitude with truth is greater than companionship with lies. Better an empty table than one crowded with those who feed only when your plate is full. Better silence with honesty than noise with deceit. Thus, the test is not cruelty, it is mercy. It frees you from chains disguised as love. It gives you clarity that cannot be purchased, cannot be faked. And in this clarity, you become not weaker, but stronger, not lonelier, but freer. This is the paradox. In losing many, you gain yourself. And in gaining yourself, you finally know the worth of the few who remain. There comes a moment when the seeker realizes that life itself is the architect of the test. You do not have to invent scenarios, for destiny weaves them into the fabric of your days. A financial collapse, a sudden illness, a failure that strips away prestige, each one is not merely misfortune, but revelation. In these hours, people show you their essence. Some disappear without farewell. Others linger at a distance. And then, unexpectedly, one or two draw nearer, as if your pain is a magnet for their courage. That is when you understand. Love is not measured by smiles and light, but by footsteps that move closer in darkness. Psychologists speak of the attachment rupture, those moments when bonds are tested by strain. Most ties snap under pressure, for they were never strong, only brittle illusions disguised as affection. But some bend and hold, like branches that refuse to break in storm. These are the bonds that nourish the soul. In mythology, they are the companions of the hero, those rare allies who do not abandon the quest even when the treasure seems lost. In every life story, the test reveals these characters, and you must ask yourself, who are the ones written into your story, not just for the prologue of triumph, but for the chapters of trial? This realization unsettles the human ego, for ego thrives on numbers, on the crowd, on recognition. Ego counts followers, measures attention, craves applause. But love is not ego's currency. Love speaks in silence, in sacrifice, in presence. The archetype of the guardian does not boast of loyalty, does not advertise devotion. Their love is often quiet, unnoticed by the world. Yet, when storms rise, they remain as an anchor. This is the paradox that many fail to see. The loudest voices in prosperity are often the quietest in despair. The quietest in prosperity are often the loudest in loyalty. And you, the listener, must confront the discomfort of this truth. Think of those you call friends. Ask not who cheers at your victories, but who listens when your voice trembles. Ask not who drinks at your banquet, but who offers bread when your table is bare. Ask not who praises your strength, but who stays when you collapse. These questions sting, because the answers may expose betrayal. But without asking, you live in illusion. And illusions, while comforting, are dangerous. They blind you to the real until the real is lost. The shadow in human nature clings to illusions because they are easy. It whispers, "Do not test. Do not risk. Keep the comfort of many, even if their loyalty is false." But comfort is not nourishment. It is a drug numbing you until reality strikes. The test is painful, yes, but it is healing pain, the kind that sets a broken bone straight, the kind that tears away rot so that new growth may flourish. To avoid the test is to carry rot within the soul. To face it is to endure the wound that becomes wisdom. There is a deeper layer. Still, the test is not only for others, but for you. Love is a mirror. The way you endure for others reveals the way you deserve to be endured for. If you abandon easily, you attract abandoners. If you remain steadfast, you draw the steadfast. The law of resonance governs this truth. Like attracts like. The universe does not deliver to you what you want, but what you embody. So when you think of loyalty, do not only ask, who loves me? Ask also, how do I love? Think of the healer archetype again. They do not stay with the wounded because it is convenient, but because it is their nature. They cannot betray because betrayal is foreign to their spirit. To become such a being is to align yourself with truth, and in truth, you will find others like you. But if your love is conditional, if your loyalty is transactional, then you must expect the same in return. This is the law no human escapes. So the test of love, though frightening, is not a punishment. It is a mirror. It shows you who others are. It shows you who you are. And when the mirror cracks illusions, what remains is reality, sometimes lonely, sometimes painful, but always liberating. For liberation lies not in being loved by all, but in being loved truly by a few. And if by none, then in learning to love yourself so completely that the absence of others cannot shake you. Thus, the seeker's journey continues, not toward more wealth, more recognition, more companions, but toward depth, clarity, and truth. For when you know who stands with you in the silence, you have already won more than the applause of 1,000 voices could ever give. In the stillness after the storm, the seeker begins to see the strange gift hidden in betrayal and abandonment. At first, the heart mourns the loss, mistaking departure for failure. But slowly, clarity rises like dawn after a long night. You begin to understand that those who left were never truly yours, and those who stayed were never bound by condition. The test, painful as it may be, becomes a form of purification. It removes the unnecessary, distills the essential, and leaves you with a truth that is fierce in its simplicity. Not everyone who walks with you is meant to finish the journey. Psychologists speak of selective attention, the brain's tendency to focus only on certain stimuli while ignoring others. In relationships, this is mirrored by selective loyalty. Many are present only when the rewards of presence shine brightly. Their loyalty is not loyalty, but attention filtered through self-interest. This is why the test is so vital. It disrupts the illusion, forcing you to see with sharper eyes. And once you see, you can no longer be deceived by smiles that hide hunger, by kindness that hides calculation. This awakening, though lonely, frees you from the exhausting performance of keeping such people close. The archetype of the wanderer emerges here, the one who learns to walk alone without fear. Society often conditions us to equate solitude with weakness, as if being without company is proof of being unloved. Yet the wanderer teaches otherwise. Solitude is not the absence of love, but the presence of self. It is in solitude that you discover whether you can be your own companion, your own anchor, your own guardian. When the test strips others away, it simultaneously asks you, can you remain with yourself, or will you abandon your own soul in despair? And you, listening now, must confront this question directly. If everyone left, if every voice turned silent, would you still rise in the morning with purpose? Would you still see beauty in the world, or would you surrender to bitterness? The measure of love is not only who remains with you, but how you remain with yourself. For the deepest betrayal is not the departure of others, but the abandonment of your own spirit when the world withdraws its affection. The shadow archetype fears this loneliness more than anything. It whispers that you are nothing without applause, that you vanish when unseen, that you have no worth unless mirrored in the eyes of others. This is the most dangerous illusion of all, for it traps the soul in endless dependency. But the awakened seeker learns otherwise. You existed before applause. You existed before recognition. You existed before love found you. And thus, you will exist after. To know this is to be unshakable, to carry within you a sanctuary that no betrayal can invade. Yet even in this sanctuary, love has its place, not as dependence, but as resonance. When you stand whole in yourself, you attract others who are whole. Their love is not a need, but a gift, not a chain, but a choice. They do not stay because they fear losing you. They stay because being near you feels like truth. This is love at its highest form, two beings who do not complete each other, for they are already complete, but who choose to walk side by side in freedom. Such love does not flinch at tests, because it was never built on illusion. Think of the archetype of the guardian once more, now revealed in a different light. The guardian is not only the one who remains through your darkness, but the one who honors your light without envy, who does not need your failure to feel strong, who celebrates your joy without calculation. To have even one such soul beside you is to be rich beyond imagination. But to recognize them, you must endure the test, for the false often mimic the true until fire burns the masks away. So, when life removes the crowd, do not curse the silence, bless it. For in silence, truth speaks. When false companions vanish, do not mourn their absence. Rejoice, for they were weight, not wings. And when you find yourself standing with only a few, or only yourself, know that you are finally standing on solid ground. Love that endures tests is love worth keeping. Love that fails them was never love at all. The seeker learns that every test of love is also a test of perception. What you see in others often reflects what you allow yourself to believe. Many are not betrayed by others, but by their own blindness, their refusal to see what was always there. The signs of conditional loyalty whisper early subtle hesitations, fleeting glances when hardship arrives, small betrayals wrapped in excuses. Yet human hearts, longing for connection, often paint over cracks with colors of hope. We call shadows light because we fear the truth. And so the test, when it comes, is less a surprise than a revelation of what we always knew but dared not admit. In psychology, this is called cognitive dissonance, the tension between what we sense and what we accept. We know the bond is fragile, yet we cling to the illusion because it soothes our need for belonging. Une illusion cannot endurer fire. When trials ignite, the fragile shatters, leaving us wounded not only by loss, but by the realization that we deceived ourselves. This is why the test is both painful and merciful. It does not create falsehood, it unmasks it. And though the unmasking hurts, it also liberates you from the exhausting labor of pretending. The archetype of the warrior arises here not as one who conquers others, but as one who confronts the truth with courage. The warrior does not hide from betrayal, does not numb the wound, does not deny the emptiness. They walk through the valley of abandonment with eyes open, for they know that the only way out of pain is through it. The warrior's strength lies not in avoidance, but in endurance, not in illusion, but in clarity. To be such a warrior in your own life is to accept the test without resentment, to see it not as cruelty, but as the universe's way of sharpening your vision. And you, the listener, must feel this call. Ask yourself, are you willing to see people as they truly are, not as you wish them to be? Can you look at the relationships in your life and strip away the decorations of convenience, the veneers of mutual advantage, until only essence remains? This is not easy. To look without illusion requires bravery. But bravery is the birthplace of freedom. Without it, you will always remain at the mercy of shadows. With it, you will see the faces of truth. The shadow archetype resists, whispering that such clarity will leave you alone. And perhaps it will, for a season. But solitude, in truth, is far richer than companionship in deceit. Solitude strengthens the roots of the self, while deceit erodes them. The tree that stands alone in the storm, though shaken, grows deeper roots than the forest that falls together because none stood firm. So too does the soul that learns solitude grow unshakable. Out of this solitude emerges the archetype of the sage, the one who no longer craves many, but honors the few. The sage does not measure relationships by quantity, but by depth. One loyal companion outweighs 100 fleeting admirers. One voice of truth silences 1,000 echoes of flattery. The sage understands that the test of love is not meant to leave you empty, but to leave you purified, surrounded not by numbers, but by authenticity. This shift is not loss, it is refinement. And so, in the ashes of what was false, a new form of love arises. It is not love chained to need, but love that breathes freely. It does not depend on what you can offer, but rests in who you are. It does not vanish when fortunes shift, but deepens in adversity. To recognize such love is to recognize life's rarest treasure, one that cannot be purchased, cannot be demanded, cannot be manufactured. It can only be revealed through trial. This is why the test, though painful, is sacred. It is the fire that separates gold from dust, the storm that reveals the strength of roots, the silence that exposes the truth of voices. You may fear it, you may resist it, but in time, you will see that it was never an enemy. It was always your ally, guiding you away from illusion and into truth. And in that truth, you will discover a freedom far greater than the approval of many. The freedom of knowing who truly loves you, and the power of loving yourself enough to accept nothing less. And so the journey reaches its final threshold, where the seeker stands not in fear of the test, but in gratitude for it. For every abandonment that once burned now appears as a lesson in disguise. Every silence once felt as cruelty now remembered as clarity. The soul that survives these trials emerges, not bitter, but reborn, for it has shed the chains of external validation. Love, once confused with attention, once entangled with admiration, is now understood as presence. The quiet, steady presence that endures regardless of circumstance. Psychology calls this the evolution of secure attachment, the state in which a person no longer clings out of desperation, but connects out of choice. This state is not fragile, for it does not depend on performance, wealth, or applause. It flows from the simple truth that love is not earned, it is given. Those who truly love you do not measure your worth by what you produce, but by who you are when stripped of all adornments. The test reveals this, and in revealing, it liberates you from those who only valued the mask. The archetype of the reborn soul now rises the phoenix that no longer fears fire, for it has learned that fire is not its enemy, but its element. Where once the seeker trembled at the thought of losing companions, now it understands that nothing true can be lost, and nothing false is worth keeping. This is the wisdom of the test. Love that vanishes was never love, and love that remains requires no proving. To hold this truth is to walk in the world untethered, no longer begging for loyalty, no longer performing for affection, but radiating strength from within. And you, the listener, are invited into this freedom. Consider for a moment the weight you have carried, the need to please, the fear of rejection, the anxiety of being left behind. Imagine setting it down, not because others finally stayed, but because you no longer require their staying to know your worth. When you arrive at this place, you cease to chase the illusion of many, and you begin to honor the reality of the few, or even the reality of yourself alone. Solitude no longer frightens you, for solitude is no longer emptiness. It is fullness, a sacred space where you meet yourself and discover you were never lacking. The shadow, once loud, grows silent here. It has no power over a soul that no longer craves validation. The whispers of abandonment, the fears of loneliness, the demands of dependency fade into nothingness. In their place rises a stillness, a freedom, a quiet joy. The seeker has transformed into the sovereign whole within, free without. Relationships become not chains but choices, not tests of worth, but reflections of truth. You no longer ask, who loves me? With desperation. You know already. Those who love you will stay. Those who do not will leave. And both outcomes are blessings. This is the final liberation. To no longer fear the test, but to welcome it. For the test is not designed to punish you, but to protect you, to clear the path of falsehood so that you may walk in truth. It is life's way of ensuring that you do not waste your years surrounded by echoes, but that you spend them in the company of real voices, even if those voices are few. And if none remain, you discover the greatest truth of all, that the love you seek outside is already within you, waiting, unwavering, eternal. So let the crowd fade. Let the noise fall silent. Let the masks drop away. What remains will not only show you who truly loves you, but who you truly are. And in that recognition, you will taste of freedom beyond measure. You will no longer be bound by fear of loss, for you will know that nothing real can be lost. You will no longer chase affection, for you will know that true love requires no chasing. You will stand in stillness, whole and unafraid, with love for yourself and gratitude for those who have proven true. And from that place of freedom, you will live differently. No longer desperate, no longer chained, no longer deceived. You will move with quiet strength, with open hands, with a heart no longer hungry, but overflowing. And in this overflow, you will find the rarest gift, peace.